Video 8, we will focus just on one particular shape, and that is a sphere, and we will be calculating the volume of a sphere. Now, first, I'm just going to give you the formula for the volume of a sphere. There are some kind of calculus-themed ideas about how to derive this particular formula for the volume of a sphere, but since you guys aren't quite to calculus, I'm just going to give it to you. It is 4/3 times pi r cubed. Now, if you remember, the surface area of a sphere was 4 pi r squared, but this has 4 pi r cubed. Okay, and the only thing you need to know is the radius. And with the radius, you can calculate the volume. Now, we're going to do some different kinds of problems with spheres here. We're going to kind of combine a lot of things here. So the first one we're going to look at is calculate the volume of a spherical water balloon that has a circumference of 8 inches. So imagine we have a water balloon, a spherical water balloon, and the distance around the water balloon, because that's what circumference means here, so the distance around the water balloon, around the middle part, if you will, the circumference is 8. Well, let's think. If I want to know the volume, I need to use 4/3 pi r cubed, which means in order to do that, I need to know, well, what's the radius? Well, I don't know the radius, but I know what the circumference is. Is there any way I could use the circumference to be able to get to the radius? So we need to think about what was the formula for circumference. Well, it was pi times diameter. So we know that the pi times diameter is 8. So what we have right now is the diameter, so let's just work with it. I'm going to divide pi over, and I'll get that the diameter, let's see, 8 divided by pi is approximately, I'm going to go 2 decimal places here, 2.55. So if I know the diameter is approximately 2.55, then if I cut that in half or divide by 2, well, then I get the radius. 2.55 divided by 2 is 1.275. And you might ask, should we round that to 1.28? No, I would just go ahead and use all three of those numbers. I mean, if you round it, then you're going to have rounding with rounding, and you're just going to build your rounding error. So you want to kind of minimize the rounding if you can. So I'm just going to use 1.27 or 1.275 for that. So 1.275, and then I'm going to cube that number. Now this is where some of you, this may be the first time you've ever experienced cubing something. How do you do that in your calculator? Now, since 1.275 to the third power, right, 1.275 times 1.275 times 1.275, it's not going to be a pretty number. It's going to be a crazy decimal. So let's just figure out what this thing is, not in terms of pi. So if I were typing this in my calculator, I'd go 4 divided by 3 times pi times, so again, as I'm typing this out, and then I go times 1.275, and then you need to find the button on your calculator that looks like this. It should be right above the x squared button on your TI-30s. And that is your exponent key. So this is saying we're going to take this 2 and then type in 3 for the third power. And once I do that, this I'm going to round to 2 decimal places, and I get 8.68. My units would be inches cubed. And that's the volume. So sometimes I'm going to give you things where it's not exactly the radius, but the radius is really secretly embedded inside that particular answer. You're just going to have to work it backwards to be able to work it forwards. The second problem we're going to do together also talks about something that you probably haven't used before in your calculator, which is fine. This particular one says calculate the surface area of a bouncy ball with a volume of 15 cubic centimeters. So we want to know surface area. So the surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. But we know the volume, which is 4/3 pi r cubed, we already know it's equal to 15. So if I want to know the surface area, I need to know the radius, and the volume, well, I could get the radius from the volume. So once I figure out the radius from the volume, I can come over here and plug it in and figure out the surface area. Okay, so I got my game plan here. I know what I need to do. So now I just need to solve for this algebraically. So what I might do is get r all by itself. So, let's see, what can we do here? I can multiply both sides by 3/4, and that would get rid of my 4/3, or I could just divide by 4/3, does the same thing here. So I'm just going to do this one little piece at a time. So 15 times 3/4 is 11.25, or 11 1/4, or what, 45/4. And then I'm going to divide the pi over, and so I get r cubed is equal to, let's just go ahead and divide that by pi. This I'm going to have to start rounding, so I'm going to go 2 decimal places, 3.58. Now, the radius has already been cubed to give me this answer of 3.58. How do I undo a cube, right? So if I had, let's say, r squared equals 3.58, to undo the square, we would square root both sides. But how do I undo a cube? Same thing with the square stuff. We're going to take the cube root of both sides. It really looks like a square root with a 3 kind of nestled into the root, the elbow there. So cube root and cubes knock each other out. Now the question you might be asking is, well, how do I do that in my calculator? So here's how you do it at the TI-30s. First, you're going to press 3. And then you're going to press second and the exponent key, that little caret, that rooftop symbol. So second and that. Then on your screen, you should have 3 and then a little x root. What we're saying here is that x is the 3. This is really going to be a cube root, if you will, because we could take 4th roots and 5th roots and etc. And then go ahead and type in the 3.58. So it looks like this on your screen. This is what's on your computer screen, calculator screen. And once I press enter, again, I'm going to round this 2 decimal places, and I'm going to get 1.53 rounded. There is my radius now. This is what I can use up here to calculate the surface area. So now 4 times pi times 1.53 squared. Again, I'm just going to punch all that in and round it once again to 2 decimal places. So 4 times pi times 1.53 squared, and I get 29.42 centimeters squared. Not cube, because we're talking surface area here. Okay, so you can take volume, work it backwards to get the radius, then use the radius to work it forwards to get the surface area. The last example I want you guys to try on your own. Now notice this is similar to the last problem we just did, except I flipped it around on you. I gave you the surface area, so you know the surface area, which is 4 pi r squared, it is equal to 500. And what I want to know is, what is the volume of this bowling ball? 4/3 pi r cubed. So I want you to take this, get the radius, whatever it is, plug it in over here, and tell me what the volume is. And that is all for video number 8.